Hello and welcome to Mindset Mondays with DTK. This is episode number 122 in an ongoing series of live broadcasts. It was originally designed for folks with a growth mindset or those who'd like to create one. One of the changes that I've really become aware of is this is really about a broadcast that caters to folks who are focused on getting better at being who they are at their core, rather than distracted by merely getting better at doing what they do. So the playground today is, I ran across an old quote, and what surfaced for me is when someone points out my faults, I very often, always, find it hard at first to accept the gift of awareness, right? I don't like having my faults pointed out to me. Okay, I prefer to surface them myself. When they're pointed out for me, I know that's a faster, quicker, richer, deeper way for the learning to happen. The first thing that goes into my reptilian brain is, oh my God, people noticed. People are seeing it. Urgh. So I'm not a fan of having other folks point out my faults, right? There's part of me that wishes I noticed and addressed it on my own. That's not the way it works, right? And it's even worse when they point out the faults that I have for some time not only not seen, but that it's been having an impact around me quite a bit for quite a long time. Because the quote that I ran across is this one: "The real fault is to have faults and not amend them." So it's those ones that have been at play for the longest, the ones that have been having ripples of impact, not the intended impact, but that awful wave of unintended impact. That's when I learn about those, or I have my attention drawn to those faults, to those issues. I even talking about it, I can feel my stomach like turning over completely, right? And that's what I believe is happening writ large right now. And and initially the thought was what's happening in our culture, in the culture of the United States. But this issue, these issues, this awareness, this cultural cataclysm is happening well outside the borders of the U.S. And again, David Perry's on the conversation this morning, and one of your posts, David, last week with 10,000 people in Zurich protesting in a Black Lives Matter protest. This is not contained in the U.S. or North America at all. This is happening around the globe, and the wake of our impact is, particularly here, is centuries long, and the current upheaval is making the longevity of those systemic faults extremely clear. And we individually and societally, are we willing to live with the discomfort of owning our faults long enough to actually amend them? I look at, there was more news this morning of a NASCAR driver, the only full-time, the only Black full-time NASCAR driver. Over the weekend, somebody went into his garage and one of his crew found a noose hanging in his garage stall in Alabama. He's a Black driver who's wearing "I Can't Breathe" t-shirts and who started and successfully completed a bid to get NASCAR to ban the Confederate flag. It's 155 years ago the Civil War was fought and the Confederate Army, the traitors, lost. It was 75 years ago when the Nazis were defeated, and Germany has outlawed promoting or memorializing Nazi movement. What the fuck is wrong with us? Why do we in the United States have this fetishistic attachment to the losers in two cataclysmic wars? What is it that we're so attached to? Not only are we not owning the faults, not only are we not willing to look at them, we're still memorializing and fetishistically attached to these ideologies. It's fascinating. And I look at that and I wonder, not that everything's about me. This is the one the wondering that came up for me is where else am I living with faults that I'm pretending not to see or glossing over, that I'm not amending them? And so I want to play that out to you. Where are you living with faults that you're not amending? John says, or act as if they didn't exist, let alone be apparent to others. Yeah, well, isn't that the thing? Right. Because if nobody points it out, then I can pretend that they don't exist. No, and David, it is, what's going on with our NASCAR driver, it is awful news that even today, that kind of crap is still going on. But it comes down to we're unwilling to look at our mistakes, own them, make amends for them, and apologize. I mean, isn't that the first three rules of crisis management? Or first four rules? Own it, apologize, take action to make it better, and apologize again, and then repeat. And we haven't done that with the decimation that we've done to the First Nations, to the Native American tribes here in the United States, in North America. We haven't acknowledged what we've done to African Americans here in this country for 401 years. We're not acknowledging the othering that we're doing to other brown people that are here in this country. I look at Australia and Germany with what they've done to reintegrate those they tried to decimate culturally. And it's astounding how different the cultural response is, and therefore the cultural cohesion, when people acknowledge what they've done at an individual and societal level and make amends for it. What's going on? I mean, I know that our country is less than 300 years old, and we're talking about countries. The Aboriginals were in Australia for 60,000 years. Germany is several, you follow the Germanic people back over 1,000 years. Our country is 300 years old. We're petulant teenagers, unwilling to look at our own foibles and failures and do anything about it. And we wonder why there's so much. Well, I don't wonder why there's so much upheaval. I mean, looking at Germany, they have doors older than our country, and we're trying to push out there as if we're doing everything right. Hint, we're not. Yes, when we're unwilling and unable to recognize our mistakes as mistakes and take accountability, what's happening? Well, this, the upheaval. So, and I go back to taking this to the personal and the individual level with those of you who are playing along in this video. Where are we pretending our mistakes don't exist or aren't having an impact? Where are we intentionally being blind? Where do we have mistakes or faults in our system and we're not amending them? I mean, as long as the Band-Aid is ripped off and we're paying attention to what's going on now in a cultural way, why not keep looking? I may as well look at everything, right? Where else do we have an opportunity to shift our world? People live in houses that are older than the US. I know, it's astounding. I was noticing that in Amsterdam. But that is, I think as humans, we're willing to be blind to what's happening here and look out. In fact, most often, not only do we do that, we project that with which we deal or that which we are ignoring, we tend to project onto others and then resist it and reject it in others. So that's the clue on where to look. That's fascinating. So part of what I'm doing this week and part of what I'm taking on and committing to this week is pulling apart where I have faults that I'm pretending no one else has noticed. And even saying it, the stomach is just, ribs are closing in. I feel that discomfort of, yeah, I know I've got faults. Got a laundry list of them that I keep flogging myself for. And I realize that none of them are invisible to those around me. All of them are having an impact wake. Am I willing to be uncomfortable and unpack what's really happening long enough to be able to lean in and make amends for these faults? Cataloging is not enough, but it is the first uncomfortable step. Am I willing to play in that space? I think that's the beautiful question, John. What happens when we're willing to admit that we're not perfect and that we're not right all the time? When we do, we have to take action. But I think shame in doing something. I think the shame piece is a big piece of it. How much are we shaming ourselves, and how much are we expecting to be shamed by others when that fault is uncovered, whether it's something that we openly, whether we're open about, or it's something that's pointed out for us. It's amazing the lengths to which human beings will go to avoid shame, whether it's shaming ourselves or being shamed by others. It's, my God, the lengths to which we will go, the belief systems that we will create, the containers that we will fabricate to keep from feeling shame. What's the trade-off? How else can we frame it? I mean, I know that the intellectually it goes to, yeah, it's an opportunity for learning. Yeah, that's, we make up the shame. We attach the meaning of shame. We package that experience together with the awareness. But we're making that true. I'm making that true. When I'm avoid having others know my faults, see my faults, or having me learn their experience of my faults. I'm the one who attaches shame to that instantly. That's a script that I'm running. Right, John? Yeah, it's a preferred denial. It's easier. It's easier to deny it exists. It's easier to ignore it. It's easier to construct the container and the barrier and the borders around it so that I don't have to see it. I don't have to be with it. And God knows I don't have to feel. Peter Bregman said, if you're willing to experience everything, you can achieve anything. And everything includes shame and guilt and remorse and all the other attachments and experiences all the other experiences and emotions you're going to attach to an experience. I can attach anything I want to it. Everything is made up. Rick Tamlin's been teaching me this for 12 years. It's all made up. Why not make up something that serves? When I make up shame and attach shame to it, instead of, this is just an experience that's happened, what is the learning? What can I possibly take from this? Remember, Virginia, is it that where the culture desires abolishing the word shame, or we as individuals are trying to distance ourselves from the experience of shame? I don't know, does our culture not abide someone being wrong? I think our culture is very comfortable with someone else being wrong. I think that's part of what's happening right now. There's, when you experience social media or have a conversation about anything emotionally or politically charged right now, people are very comfortable with the other person being wrong. Now, we'll all try to save them from being wrong by getting them to believe what we believe. But our culture doesn't have a problem with people being wrong. We, as individuals, have an aversion to being wrong or feeling wrong or being made to feel wrong. Yeah, no, it may be an academic distinction, but it feels very real for me. I have no problem with other people being wrong. I make people wrong all the time. It doesn't serve anything, but I do it. This is a 90-degree turn, but stay with me for a second. There's a brilliant there are two rules in improvisational comedy. First rule is your job is to make your partner brilliant or to look brilliant. The second rule is everything that comes out of your partner's mouth is brilliant. Right? It's you're holding the concept that I think that's the complete opposite of what's going on in our culture right now, where we're so convinced that we're right, and as soon as somebody else believes what we believe, then they'll be right, and until then they're wrong, and it's our job to save them from being wrong. We don't learn anything by standing in convincing. There's no discovery, there's no unearthing, there's no connection in convincing. There's no curiosity in convincing. A lot of fake curiosity. Collecting enough information so you can use it against them to make them believe what you believe. There's no connection there. I think our opportunity is to find the brilliance in every single interaction. And that includes in ourselves, especially as we play with the idea of examining our faults, playing with how do we unearth, uncover, connect with, and amend our faults? How can we be honest and true and have blameless discernment in looking at ourselves and our own faults? Peeling off the shame, peeling off the judgment, peeling off the voting, and just holding in blameless discernment an exploration of what is and isn't present. It's a powerful way to avoid shame. Yeah, Anusha, yes. And either way, it is made up. Anusha says shame is about living up to the standard set by society. Guilt is about the standards you set up and don't live up to. Either way, it's made up. Bottom line going on that it's wrong. As soon as awareness is there, yeah, it's a longer post. As soon as awareness is there, can't go on because then you're just reinforcing the behavior. Only action to take. Oh, it just bounced. Only action to take by demonstrating is when interacting with people, teaching them why it's wrong. And again, even the teaching them why it's wrong is dangerous because I'm going to see it as wrong through my lens. And I think this is what happens too often. I think the opportunity is, and again, thanks for posting this in there. Find the brilliance. Is creative. It's listening for what I like about that is listening for something with which you can connect in what's happening with the other person. Listening with what I can connect with what's true and what's going on for me. What if I found the brilliance in the faults that I unearth? I have them, and my faults are having an impact on my world and the world around me. And if I can find the brilliant elements in anything that's happening within my world, I can connect with it, and then I have a chance to address it. My head is spinning around how would that map culturally to what's happening now, these cultural spasms. How can we change the world around us by changing the world within? How do we look at what's happening culturally? And no matter how big and expansive this issue is and this cultural upheaval is right now, how do we own our piece of it and make amends for our piece of it? No matter how large, no matter how small. Silence is complicity. And when we hold in denial the faults that we have, then that's our silence, that's our complicity. And Teresa, I love your piece here, about bringing this into the lens of empathy. Anusha, thanks for playing. I get that you got to go. Thanks for being here. I think one of the cool pieces to play with here is having empathy for self. That's not just a game that we play with others. Is having empathy for self and understanding that as we are humans, we will have faults. That's the nature of the beast. What if we held ourselves in empathy? I can feel the loosening right now. Even holding empathy for myself would allow me to hold the faults for the truth that they are and not candy coat them, not gloss over them, not to continue to wrap them in denial, but to see them and hold them and acknowledge them. Because without that, I can't amend anything. And I think what I want to offer for this week is an invitation that I'm going to give myself, which is to hold myself with empathy and to hold yourself with empathy and explore the faults and explore their impact and see where there's an opportunity to amend those faults and to make amends with those upon whom you've had ripples of impact from those faults being present, and to even hold that in empathy. It's a tremendous amount of healing that's needed right now. And like the acknowledgement of faults and the amending of faults, that healing starts with yourself and work out from there. And my goodness, if we would all do that, how different would this world be? It's time for our culture here in the United States to grow up. We no longer have the luxury of being the recalcitrant teenager. Time for us to put our big boy panties and our big girl panties on and get our shit together and acknowledge our faults and start to amend them. To own it, apologize, begin to repair, and apologize again. It starts with one. So as always, thank you for joining in on this Monday morning and kicking off your week with Mindset Mondays. Please feel free to come to Mindset Mondays Facebook group and share in the conversation there. So between now and next week, what mindset will you choose?